Hi Math 7 friends, tomorrow is your first test of fourth quarter and I want to make sure that you are ready for that. So I know that I handed out the review in class today and I am going to spend some time just going through each question on that review and making sure that you know how to do each of them. Remember that the review is exactly like your test. So if you know how to do each of the questions on your review, you will be super prepared for your test tomorrow. As you are watching this video, make sure that you have your review right in front of you and also an extra piece of paper so that you can do the problems with me as I do them up on the board. Okay, so the first part of your review, part A, says to solve an equation to answer the question. So for each of these, what you're going to do is you are going to write an equation. You're going to change these words into an equation and then you are going to solve that equation. So for problem number 1, it says 17 is what percent of 85? So remember, whenever we see what, that's going to be our variable x. Whenever we see the word is, that's going to be an equals. Whenever we see the word of, that is going to be multiplication. So 17 is what percent of 85? So your equation would be that 17 equals x times by 85. And if we want to solve for the x, to get the x by itself, we have to divide by 85 on both sides. So when you take 17 divided by 85, you're going to get a decimal of 0.2. And this particular question says what percent? So to change 0.2 into a percentage, you move the decimal 2 places to the right. So the answer would be 20%. Okay, let's look at number 2. What number is 15% of 80? So remember, wherever it says the what, that's going to be our variable. So what number is, it's going to be an equals, 15%. So remember to multiply 15% in your calculator. You're going to have to change that to 0.15. And then of is times, and then 80. So what number is 15% of 80? And now we just multiply 0.15 by 80, and we get 12. So 12 is the number that is 15% of 80. Okay, number 3. 30% of what number is 21? So let's write our equation. So remember, we always change our percent to a decimal. So 30% would become 0.30. Of, that's our times. What number, that is our x, is our equals, and then 21. And then once we have our equation written, we just solve it for whatever variable we have in the equation. So 0.30 times x equals 21. So to solve this for the x, to get the x by itself, we get rid of the multiplication of 0.30 by dividing by 0.30 on both sides. And if you take 21 and you divide by 0.30, you get 70. X equals 70. So 30% of 70 is 21. Okay, and then the last one on this section, 70 is what percent of 49? So let's write our equation. 70, okay, so in number 4, we have 70 is what percent of 49? So let's write our equation. 70 is what percent of 49? And then we're just solving for the x. We're trying to get the x by itself. So to get rid of the multiplication of 49, we've used division. So we divide by 49 on both sides. And when you take 70 and you divide by 49, you get 1.428. So because we are wanting to know a percent on this one, so in your calculator you get 1.428 7, and then there's a bunch of other numbers too. So because we're wanting to know what percent this is, we have to change this decimal to a percent by moving the decimal 2 places to the right, and then we're going to round to the 10th spot. So this would end up being our 10th spot. Because this is 5 or bigger, this would round up to 9. So we would have 142.9%. Okay, so that's part A. Now let's go ahead and take a look at part B. Okay, so the instructions for part B say to identify the percent of change as an increase or decrease, then find the percent of change, round to the nearest 1/10 of a percent if necessary. So for these ones, we need to use the formula, the amount of change divided by the original amount, and then we need to change that, whatever that is, into a percentage. Okay, so remember, to find the amount of change, we just take the big number and we subtract the little number, and then we divide by our starting number, or our original number. Okay? So for number 5, we would take 24 minus 15, and then we would divide by 15, since 15 was our original amount. So 24 minus 15, and then we would divide by 15. And that gives us 0.6. And because this is a percent of change, we need to change it to a percent, and then we need to say whether it was an increase or a decrease. So 0.6 goes to 60%, and then because we went to 15 to 24, that was an increase. So we would say on number 5, a 60% increase. Okay, on number 6, we went from 40 cars to 24 cars. So we would do 40 minus 24, and then we would divide by 40. Okay, so remember, you take your big number minus your little number, you divide by your starting number or your original amount. So 40 minus 24 is 16. 16 divided by 40 is 0.4, and we need to change this to a percentage. So this would be 40%, and then because we went from 40 to 24, this one would be a decrease, 40% decrease. Okay, number 7. On number 7, we went from 12 calculators to 4 calculators. So we would do 12 minus 4 divided by our original amount. So 12 minus 4 is 8. 8 divided by 12 gives us a decimal of 0.66666 repeating. This one is and then it ends with a 7. Okay, so if we want to change this to a percentage, if we move 2 places to the right and then round to the tenths, this will round to 66.7%. And because we went from 12 to 4, that one is a decrease. Okay, and let's go ahead and look at number 8. Need to create a little bit more space here. So on number 8, we have 100 pennies to 101 pennies. So we do 101 minus 100 divided by 100. And if you take 1 and you divide it by 100, you get 0.01. So then if you move this decimal 2 places to the right, that would be a 1% increase, because we went from 100 pennies to 101. Okay, let's go ahead and do the next part. Okay, so on part C, you are supposed to find the new amount. Okay, so you're supposed to find the new amount. So, whenever you are finding a new amount, you have to take your original number and then you find out whatever percentage of that number that you are given, and then you're either going to increase your original amount or decrease your original amount. So if we have 40 employees increased by 20%, the first thing that we need to do is find out what 20% of 40 is. So on number 9, we're going to take and multiply 0.20 times 40. Okay, remember, that's how you find a percentage of something. Of means times. So 20% of 40 becomes 0.20 times 40, and that is going to be 8. And then you take the 8, and because we want to increase 40 employees by 20%, we add 8 to 40, and we get 48. Okay, number 10. 120 pounds decreased by 40%. So we first want to find out what 40% of 120 is. So we change this to a multiplication problem because we have the word of. So this would be 0.40 times 120. And that gives us 48. And now because this one is 120 pounds decreased by 40%, now that we know that 40% of 120 is 48, we have to take 120 and decrease it by 48. And we get 72. Okay, number 11. $80 increased by 12%. So we're first going to have to figure out what 12% of 80 is. So our multiplication problem, because this says of, and remember of means to multiply, our multiplication problem to figure that out would be 0.12 times 80. And that's going to give us 9.6. That's what 12% of 80 is. And now we need to take 80, we need to increase it by 9.6. So that means we're going to add those two together, and we would get 89.6, an $89.60 increase. Okay, the last one. 840 brushes decreased by 25%. So we have to do 25% of 840, which would be 0.25 times, I'm going to do that down here, sorry about that. So it would be 0.25 times 840. That's how we find 25% of 840. So 0.25 times 840 is 210. And if we take 840 brushes and we decrease by 25%, which is 210, we're going to have to subtract 210 from 840. And that gives us 630 brushes. Okay, now we are going to move on to part D. Okay, I think that part D is probably the trickiest part on the test, but you just have to remember what you're doing when you're finding the price, discount, or markup. So in order to find the price, discount, or markup, this is similar to finding the new amount. So you always find the percentage of your original price, and then you're either going to subtract that from your original price or add it to your original price. If it's a discount, you subtract. If it's a markup, you add. So if our original price on number 13 is 82, but there's a 20% discount, that means we need to figure out what 20% of 82 is first. So we do 0.20 times 82, and that gives us 1640. So our discount is going to be $16.40. And because this is a discount, we have to take the 82 and subtract the 1640. Sorry, that pen kind of ran into each other. So that's a 1640, and that will give us our sales price. So if we do 82 minus 1640, we get $65.60. That's how much we're going to have to pay. So if you go into a store and there's something that's on sale for 20% off, and the original price was 82, you would do 20% of 82 and then subtract that from your original price. Okay, now on number 14, our original price is $125, and we don't know what our discount is. We don't know what this is, and this is always going to be a percent. Okay, so if you're finding the discount, we always want to put this as a percent. So if our original price is 125 and our sales price is 80, we know that we're going to take whatever our original price is, which is 125. Because this is a discount, we're going to subtract whatever the discount is, and that is going to give us our sales price. Okay, so now to solve for this x, we would subtract 125 from both sides. So 80 minus 125 is a negative 45. So now we have a negative x equals a negative 45, which this is like a negative 1. So when we divide by negative 1 on both sides, we get x equals 45. Okay, now because we want this as a percentage, we have to take the 45 and divide by our original price of 125, and so that is going to give us a 36% discount. Now there is an easier way to do this one. We can do this one as a percent of change. So if this is your starting amount and this is your ending amount, you can subtract those two. So 125 minus 80, and then divide by your original price. So that's another way that you could do this. You could do the starting price minus the ending price divided by your original price. And that would also give you a 36% discount. Okay, on number 15, if you do not know the original price, okay, remember whenever you're finding out how much something's going to cost, you take the original price, and then on this one you are going to subtract your discount. And then that is going to give you your sales price. So whatever your original price is, okay, and we don't know that in this case. We have to subtract our discount, and that will give us our sales price. So if we call our original price X, to figure out what our discount is, because our discount is 36%, we're going to have to do 0.36 times by whatever our original price is. So X minus 0.36x equals 32. And now we just solve this equation. So 1 minus 0.36x, 1x minus 0.36x is 0.64 times by x equal to 32. And then to solve for the x, we're going to divide by 0.64 on both sides. So if you take 32 and you divide by 0.64, you're going to get 50. So that means our original price is 50. Okay, let's go ahead and look at number 16. 16 is another one of those ones where we're finding the original price. So if we call the original price X, this time we're doing a markup. So if we call the original price X, to do a markup, we're going to have to add 80% of whatever the original price is. And since we don't know it, we're going to call that X. Okay, so the original price plus 80% of the original price is going to give us our sales price. And now we just solve this equation. 1 plus 0.80 is 1.80 times by x equals 2160. And then to solve for the x, we would divide by 1.80 on both sides. So 2160 divided by 1.80 is 12. So that means our original price is 12. Okay, let's go ahead and look at number 17. Kind of running out of space here, so I'll do 17 right down here. Okay, so on 17, the cost of the store is $32, and then there's a markup of 26%, and then we have our selling price. So remember, how a store works is they buy in a product for a certain price, and then they mark it up, and then they sell it to you. So to find out what the selling price is, we have to do the cost of the store, which is going to be $32, and then we have to find out what 26% of 32 is. And then we're going to add those two together, and that'll give us our selling price. So if we do 26% of 32, that would be 0.26 times 32, and that would be $8.32. And then if we add that to what the store paid for the product, that means they are going to sell the product for $42.32. Okay, we've got one more section left on our review. Okay, so the last part on your test, part E, asks you to calculate simple interest. And so remember, to calculate simple interest, you're going to use the formula that simple interest is found by taking whatever your principal is, timesing that by your rate, and timesing that by the time. Okay, so this is the simple interest formula. So on part E, you are going to take what you've been given and solve for what you don't know. So you take your formula. In your formula, you plug in the things that you know, and then you figure out what you don't know. So on 18, the interest earned is 84, so that means we know the I. The principal is 600, so that means we know the P. The interest rate is 7%, so remember we're going to change that to 0.07. And then the thing that we don't know is the time. Okay, so if I write, or if I plug into the formula the things that I know the I is 84. I know the principal is 600. I know the rate is going to be 0.07. And the thing I don't know is the time. And so now we just have to solve this equation for time, for the thing that we don't know. So if we take 600 and we multiply it by 0.07, that gives us 42. So 84 equals 42 times by t. And then remember, we're solving for the t. So to get the t by itself, I have to get rid of the multiplication of 42 by using division. So 84 divided by 42 is 2. So t equals 2. That means the time in years is 2 years. Okay, number 19. So remember, we're just going to take our formula, our simple interest formula. We're going to plug in the things that we know to figure out what we don't know. So on this one, we know the interest earned is $32.50, so that's our I, equal to, we know the principal is $10,000. This time we don't know our rate, so that's going to stay our variable. That's going to be an R times our time in years, which is 10. And now to solve this equation, we would do 10,000 times by 10, and that gives us 100,000 times by R equal to 3250. And then to solve for the R, we're going to have to divide by 100,000 on both sides. So if you take 3250 and you divide by 100,000, you get 0.0325. As a decimal, and then we want to change this to a percentage. So we move 2 places to the right, and this would be 3.25%. That's our rate for number 19. Okay, let's go ahead and look at, or I'm sorry, that's our rate for number 19. Let's go ahead and look at number 20. So remember, we take what we know, we plug in or what we know to the formula, and we solve for what we don't know. So this time we don't know the principal. So on 20, we know the interest earned is $39.60. We don't know the principal. We know the rate is 11%, so that would be 0.11. And then we know the time is 6 months, which time in years would be half of a year. Okay, so we're going to change that to 0.5, because remember, time is always time in years. Okay, so if we take 0.11 and we times by 0.5, we get 0.055 times by P, and then that's going to be equal to 39.60. So we're going to divide both sides by 0.055. So 39.60 divided by 0.055 is 720. So that's our principal. Okay, so if we invest $720 at an 11% interest rate for half of a year, the interest earned is $39.60. Okay, the last problem, 21. An account earns annual simple interest. So remember, annual means 1 year. Find the balance of the account of $240 at 4% for 1 year. Okay, so on this one, balance has been underlined. And that's because when we find the interest, we have to add that to our original principal, and that gives us the balance. Okay, so we don't know the I. We do know the principal is $240. We know the rate is 4%, so that's going to be 0.04. We know the time is 1 year. So if you take 240 and you multiply by 0.04 times 1, that gives you 9.6. So I equals 9.6. And that's the interest. And so now to find the balance of the account after the year, we take the interest, which is $9.60, we add it to the amount that we started with, and that gives us our balance in the account. So $249.60. Okay, and that, my friends, is the review for your Chapter 4 test.